अस्सलाम वालेकुम। आज हमारे पास एक बहुत स्पेशल गेस्ट है और मेरी कंपनी में डिस्कशन हो रही थी कुछ दिन से पहले ही, तो हमने कहा कि यार हमारे पास बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लोग आते रहते हैं कॉन्स्टेंटली दफ्तर में हमसे मिलने। सो जहाँ हम लोग आपस में मिलते हैं, सो व्हाई नॉट पोर्ट्रेट टू द वाइडर ऑडियंस। और नेचुरली जहाँ से भले वो अपने आप को माशाल्लाह ग्रो कर रहे हैं, वी आल्सो वांट कि हमारे यूट्यूब और ऑल दिस चैनल्स को डिफरेंट फॉलोइंग हो। तो बहुत सारे मशहूर लोग हम सबसे मिलने आते रहते हैं और वी आर वेरी प्रिविलेज्ड इनफ कि इतने मशहूर लोग हमसे मिलने आते हैं एंड वी गेट टू वर्क विद देम। इट्स रियली एन ऑनर। तो हमने कहा जब मशहूर लोग आएंगे हम लोगों को दिखाएंगे और बताएंगे नेवरदलेस। बाबर के बारे में आई वुड लाइक टू मेंशन वन थिंग कि जब हम लोग वली को पाकिस्तान में 2019 में स्टार्ट कर रहे थे, तो समीना और मैं यूज्ड टू एक्चुअली वर्क अ लॉट ऑन कि मार्केट साइजिंग कितनी है, लैंडस्केपिंग कितनी है, इन्फ्लुएंसर मार्केट की सेगमेंटेशन क्या है, ओवरऑल हाउ द इंडस्ट्री स्टार्टेड। और इस बंदे को हम 3 साल से पढ़ रहे हैं। So constant, so there was nothing available across the marketing advertising industry. There are no stats available, there are no facts available, and there was this lone ranger जो पूरी advertising industry को constantly document कर रहा है, structure कर रहा है, segment कर रहा है, मतलब everything you want to know about advertising industry वो एक बंदे के content में available थी, right? And I always used to think कि यार there will be a time कि मैं बंदे से जाके मिलूंगा सही से। So I was a huge fan. I'm still a very huge fan by the way. And I feel I'm so lucky and honored that we get to work together now on day-to-day basis on so many things that's actually happening every single day, so many initiatives, so many projects. तो वो एक still वो एक fan base वहाँ मौजूद है कि यार it's like यार मैं आज बाबर से मिलूँगा. So I'm just honored and lucky to work with you over the period of time, and actually that transition from a fan to a co-worker in itself ये मेरे लिए एक बहुत बड़ी privilege है, right? Nevertheless. So start करते हैं थोड़ा सा. Babar, actually overall we understand कि marshall, if you look at your LinkedIn profile, it's like scrolling, right? So many academic मतलब accomplishments. और फिर अगर आप अपनी career को देखो, so from brand manager to actually strategist, analyst, business entrepreneur, so you have kind of done everything in the digital one way or another, right? और एक चीज that is attacked with your persona in the industry कि यार बंदा सच बहुत बोलता है, और माशाल्लाह that is such a big reputation to have in the industry कि यार बाबर का नाम है तो whatever Babar is saying सच ही बोला बाबर, right? But you don't become a truth seeker over time. मतलब ये तो नहीं कि जब बाबर 5 साल का तब से सोचता था यार मैंने सबसे सच बोलना पूरी दुनिया में जाके, right? And in an industry that is supposed to market, so very potential industry. So over the period of time, how did your life evolve? From somebody, did you actually plan on becoming all of this, or it was just a gradual evolution? So how did your life come about till this point?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and the feeling of being a fan is mutual. I'm a big fan of operators as well, so as in Samina, I'm a fan of your work. How did it all come about? I was born in Karachi. I grew up primarily in the Middle East, across various parts of the Middle East. And if you know anyone who grew up in the Middle East in the 90s, particularly Saudi Arabia, media की इतनी freedom नहीं है वहाँ पर. So as a result, media की freedom नहीं है. There's no concept of the job of media itself will be a truth-seeking endeavor, right? You have to follow a narrative that's been given to you from a top-down perspective, which is something what we are feeling in Pakistan since 2018. If you speak to any of the journalists in the space, so उस चीज़ की वजह से media never came to my mind as a profession, and I came. If you talk about luck, I was born in a wealthy family from the perspective that my father was the head of a very large bank in Saudi Arabia. So from this, I was born into privilege, you could say. And he put every opportunity in front of me from the point of view, if you want anything you can put on the table that you want to become as a profession or as an industry, you can do that. And the earliest upbringing was that I have all these companies, which one of these companies do you want to take over? That was the upbringing that I was put through for the first 20 years of my life. It was name an industry and I'll give you that company. Wow. That was the upbringing. And then around 14 years ago, I would say, my parents separated, and we moved here to Pakistan, and that was like the hit to our life, where it was like we went from a life of having everything at our disposal you can think of, to teen gaadiyan, ye wo and all that, and then going to a position where I'm renting an apartment in Karachi, living with my mom and my sister, and all those supposed doors that were open were closed. And then I was put in a situation where I had to either lament about the situation that I was put in or do something about it. Luckily, I chose to do something about the situation. and I went to a university in Karachi. वहाँ पे मैं अपनी bachelor's pursue किया था marketing में, and while doing the bachelor's, I happened across a very brilliant person who was 2 years my senior at the university, who was the genius in the situation, and he and I co-founded an agency, digital agency, one of the first digital agencies in Pakistan. Not the first, but one of them.
And what time is it?
This is the year 2009. So those are the days when you actually had to meet the brands and be like, "Ek cheez hai Facebook ke naam se, ek cheez hai Google ke naam se." I still have emails in my inbox to date from professors at LUMS and IBA. मतलब जो लोग कहते हैं LUMS and IBA, these big universities, जो professors, marketing के professors थे, who have emails 2009 में जो मुझे कह रहे हैं कि ये fad है, ये कोई चीज़ नहीं है, the apps and all that, mobile phone, ये आएगा चले जाएगा. मतलब, and then I was like कि अच्छा अब assurance मिल गई है, इनको कुछ नहीं आता. So started that agency, and in that agency was where the feeling of truth and the pursuit of truth came about quite a bit. Where it was like I was the sales guy in the agency, and my business partner was the strategy guy. And there would be a lot of situations. If I talk about spark of where this all came from, there's a lot of situations where हम किसी client के साथ मिलते थे, उनका कोई digital review हो रहा है, हम या कोई media review है, तो उस time में digital review कौन सा नहीं है, media review हो रहा है, तो we're going and meeting them, we're pitching. And then we don't get any follow-up from them in terms of did we win the account, did we not win the account. हमें बता दो दे, हम follow-up इतना करें, it's a waste of our time. और फिर हमें भी इंतजार करें, right? And we would find out through the grapevine that you've lost, or we would find out through the grapevine that you've won. So I used to think that ठीक है, मतलब I'm a relatively flexible person. I've had so many ups and downs, and I've moved so many times in my life that I'm able to adjust to things, and I'm pretty agile in that way. लेकिन जो बाकी लोग मतलब are consistently following up. Or just an example, my boss is SN, I'm the business development manager. I'm following up, मुझे जवाब नहीं आ रहा, SN मुझे डालेगा, right? So because of those situations, that was such an annoying pain point. I was like, why don't we have a publication in Pakistan that covers this little space? Okay, so and so FMCG brand is launched a media review, and so and so won that. लेकिन ज़्यादा क्या होता था कि client side पे लोग इतने फट्टू हैं कि अगर हम इनको किसी को बताएंगे कि you lost the review, or you lost the account, or you didn't win whatever, or you're not even shortlisted, फिर उनको बुरा लग जाएगा. और फिर उनको ज़्यादा बुरा लगेगा when you leave them hanging, right? And that pain point, I went through that for 3 consecutive years, and it was one of those things where I was like, ये हमारे साथ हो रहा होगा, हम छोटी एजेंसी हैं. I got Khan and Javed in my name, so automatically आप कराची में हैं, तो लोग कहते हैं मुहाजिर भी है, पठान भी है, तो इसको मतलब we have to treat him badly anyway. So maybe it's just happening with us, and my business partner was a Shia. So I was like, maybe it's just because we're that minority group, I guess, Wahhabi and Shia, so they're messing with us. But when I would meet people like Rehan Merchant and other people, are like, "Acha, ये आपके साथ भी हो रहा है." So why don't we have a publication in Pakistan around this particular topic? And pick up any publication 2009 तो दो दूर ही बात है. लेकिन आज today आप मुझे बता दें advertising reporters कितने पाकिस्तान? Not one. मतलब we have an agency called Synergy Group, which has a couple of digital media agencies, has a publication called Synergizer. But because the publication is owned by a media agency, it's a little biased in that particular way. Then we have a publication called Aurora, which falls under Dawn Group. But the way, if you read Dawn Group, the Aurora publication, आपको लगेगा कि पाकिस्तान की advertising industry में कोई गलत चीज़ होती नहीं है. और भैया ये तो बहुत, साफ इस्लामिक कोई industry होगी जहाँ पर हर चीज़ शरिया compliant है. So obviously that's not the case. And so we didn't have anything like what I ended up doing. And that's where that thing stuck in me. I was like, I want to find the reporter who is going to have the guts to do this, and I'll finance them. And that never happened. So that agency, se jab mera exit hua tha, I worked into 2 to 3 client side roles, and in the process of when I became financially stable, I reignited my passion for writing. मुझे वैसे भी था, लेकिन अगर आप मिडिल ईस्ट में रह रहे हैं और आप कहते हैं कि मुझे जर्नलिस्ट बनना है, तो वो बोलेंगे तो आप गवर्नमेंट के माउथपीस बनने चाह रहे हैं, like तो there's no possible journalism वहाँ पर. I reignited my interest in journalism. वहाँ से कभी हम कोई चीज़ जीतते थे तो मैं उसमें की प्रेस रिलीज लिख रहा हूँ. Lots of trial and error में मतलब you can like Google press release एक inverted comma में डालें, फिर एक space डालें, press release Google का नाम डालें, फिर एक format आपने देख लिया था, कह रहे अच्छा शुरू में ये लिखना है, फिर रिपोर्ट डालना है, फिर ये लिखना है, फिर रिपोर्ट डालना है, फिर end the story. So I followed that format with a lot of trial and error. I learned PR by doing, not by learning from an academic perspective. And then I applied at every publication you can think of in Pakistan, Dawn, Tribune, and all that. अगर आप थोड़ा search करें, आपको मेरी here and there freelance की submissions नजर आ जाएंगी. लेकिन ज़्यादातर response ये आया था कि आप फलां के बेटे नहीं हैं, you are not from फलां family, या तो you're not from फलां sect, or you're not educated from Columbia University journalism program, so we cannot take you seriously. So as a result of that, I was unable to find a job in journalism in Pakistan. So the funny thing about that is that after working at a technology company as their publicist, de facto publicist, आप लोग तो startup है, तो you know कि if you're a marketing person, you're also the content writer, you're also the publicist, you're also this. तो इस तरह के setup में I was working as a publicist, and in that role I was discovered in a way by a publication or media group in Singapore called Haymarket Media Group.
Yes, Haymarket.
So it's a British company. They have a couple of B2B publications under their portfolio, and one of those publications is called Campaign. I had sent them such good pitches over the course of my entire career that I had some sort of memorability with them. And they reached out and they said, we have this position called Southeast Asian editor, would you like to join? And that was my first journalism job. Not in my own home country, but someone else outside the country, outside my entire region or my comfort zone recognized me. So that's where the journalism story started. The pursuit of truth. And just that Wali is the name of Allah, Haq is the name of Allah as well, and the pursuit of Allah is the pursuit of Haq, and pursuit of truth. So that's where that drive comes from. That's one way of getting closer to your creator. And there's only one. The truth is the only way forward. Lying and all that will only get you so far. And your company is obviously a testament to this fact as well. There's a lot of signals and data points all across the world that point to this. That if you're pursuing truth or your maker or your divine creator, then you will have success in your life. So that's where all of this comes from. Exactly. So that's where that all comes from.
So. Journalism or advertising industry in Pakistan is dunia bhar mein through taxi industry, right? And in Pakistan it's actually a muscle. The advertising industry is a muscle, right? And you decided in this industry to be an investigative journalist. So that's not something everybody's choice of career. And between you and me, I think with the wider audience as well, I don't know if you guys know that being a journalist in Pakistan is very, very tough. It's a very tough job to pull off, right? So how do you manage that? Investigative journalist being in Pakistan is like, I'm not going to be a step like Ali, मैं तो गया. So how do you manage that?
So when I started, it was 2017 में. वहाँ से मेरी training हुई थी with the person who's still the current editor of Campaign Asia, का नाम है Robert Savatsky. He played a big role in my training in understanding in journalism. Up to that point, my writing was very like, जो आपको, if Body.pk is a blog, right? It was very like B2B content oriented, like a case study or to explain to clients why we matter, what we do, and all that. That was what my writing was like. So to go from promotional sounding writing to going to investigative writing, he played a big role in explaining that, teaching me all that. Wहाँ से I went to another company called Branding in Asia, which is relatively famous, and I was their Pakistan/Middle East correspondent. I did that for 2 years. And वहाँ के जो report editor, उनका भी नाम Robert है, उनका नाम है Dr. Robert McGill. He also helped in my training and all that. And the impact that I was able to create in both these roles in terms of putting information out there that allows someone to reach out and say, because of you, I was able to save time in not pursuing that particular route. Or because of you, I was able to find talent that I would not otherwise have been able to access. And so on and so forth. It's quite rewarding from that point of view. Like in Singapore and Middle Eastern markets, there are advertising-oriented publications. मतलब ये तो वाली बात है ना कि there's a publication जिसका पूरा काम है advertising किसी को करना. Then वहाँ से going to profit and having Babar Nizami behind it, the CEO,
institution of the nation,
executive editor of Pakistan Today, CEO of Pakistan Today as of a couple of months ago, and him basically saying कि तुम जो भी लिखो, I have your back. So that was one of the first times where, while Campaign Asia through Robert Savatsky and Branding in Asia through Robert McGill did do investigative work, they were quite careful not to step on those. Most of their focus was that we will talk about how to do things right as opposed to who's doing wrong. You understand the difference? There's nothing wrong with talking about who's doing things right. It gives you information. अगर आप brand marketer हैं, आप Campaign Asia पढ़ रहे हैं या Branding Asia पढ़ रहे हैं, then you're reading content that tells you that okay, at the end of the content you're like, I can do my job better now as a result of reading this, right? But Profit's perspective was that let's expose the crooks, right? So in a way, the job at Profit was I'm a white-collar investigative reporter around the advertising and media industry. So like one of the most read articles that I ever wrote was 15 ways white-collar criminals are stealing from you. So and I get that's cited to me over and over again. So that was the first place I felt जहाँ I was given access to resources and tools and all that and free hand. कि जब जिस पे भी लिखना है लिखने, whether it goes against at the time it goes against your current employer where I work right now, or it goes against any company that is considered to be good or any company that's considered to be good. Deep dive into that. And again, I'll just in that role, I was constantly scratching an itch of everything that I had experienced before. ये वाली बात होती है कि जब आप employee होते हो and your boss is treating you badly, फिर आप सोचते हैं कि there's a fork in the road and your brain goes in two directions. One direction is कि ये मेरे साथ ज़्यादा करे, जब मैं इस position में होगा मैं भी ज़्यादा करूँगा. That's a fucked up bit. But the other side of it is, when I'm in this person's position, I will be the good boss. And so not a lot of people think that way in Pakistan, right? And in the same vein, when I was in all these roles, whether I was an agency, or in a brand, or in a tech company, I constantly would have this thing in the back of my mind, without maybe saying it out loud, कि यार जब मैं journalist होऊंगा ना, I'm going to uncover this and this and this and this. And then when I was in a position of power, I decided to pursue those angles. Okay, why do people invest in TV? Why are they investing in print? Where are things going? If meteorological rating is showing something is performing poorly, why are we investing in that? If there's a morning show host, I believe her name is Nida something, and she's having a program जिसमें सास और बहू की लड़ाई हो रही है भाई, और फिर आप सोच रहे हैं कि यार एक तरफ so and so CPG brand पूरी दुनिया को बता रहा है कि we're saving the world, we're all about empowering women and all that, and we want to invest in women-led narratives. लेकिन जब पाकिस्तान में वो बात आती है तो they don't really apply that. And then I'm the one writing about कि एक तरफ we're talking about saving the world, दूसरी तरफ their media inventory, vote with your dollars, does not reflect what their global ethos is. तो या तो they hate Pakistanis, या तो they don't believe in what they're saying. It's one of two things, right? या तो एक ranking मैंने बनाई थी, Profit rejected the idea, लेकिन एक ranking मैंने बनाई थी based on FBR data. I had ranked the top 100 agencies in Pakistan based on tax state. तो एक तरफ कोई अगर लोग कह रहे हैं कि हम 14th August आ गया पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद, ठीक है आप पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद तो कह रहे हैं, लेकिन you're paying less taxes than me. You're a gigantic agency. So ranking them based on FBR data. Then I made it जिस तरह Fortune 100 होता है, तो मैंने उसको नाम कहने के लिए just to call it something, मैंने कहा Patriotic 100, the top 100 agencies. So this is all information that I wanted as a brand marketer, as an agency person, and that's what I pursued. Even with influencer marketing, with a company like yours, to profile what is happening in the ecosystem, why it's happening, who's taking off, and all that. Which is how, like, when Rehan and others reached out initially and said, "Okay, which companies do you think make the most amount of sense for us to work with?" The only reason I said Wali and Digital Engagement Network when I first spoke to him was because I'd seen the dashboards. एक चीज होती claim करना, दूसरी तरफ you can walk through the dashboard and be like, "Hey, no, you don't click on things according to you. I'll tell you what to click on the left and on the right." Because some of these dashboards are pre-planned and all that. So again, it's just constantly scratching that itch of every mess up I made as an agency person, every mess up I made as a brand person. I still have those scars in my head. They had such a cringe-worthy mistake I made. I'm sure the people have those cringe-worthy moments, and maybe I'll investigate that and I'll look into that. So my entire portfolio is based on, अगर आप मतलब हर article देखें, इसमें जो finding है, it's based on something that I wanted to pursue or I wanted to find out, and that's where that drive comes from. And obviously, डर तो लगता था. There's a lot of death threats that happen. My successor at Profit, who's taken over, they want to be unnamed. Just for the simple matter, the amount of death threats I got, somewhat successful attempts at my life and all that. Like, because the subscriber base I had, it just made Rehan was among them. I was protected in that particular way. I have, in the past, in my work, I have written against the narrative that maybe Rehan or C2C has wanted. Like, that, in my experience, has not stopped. In my experience, what used to happen is, if I just want to ask the room, if you think of C2C Limited in the entire advertising ecosystem, would you rank it in the top 5? Raise your hand. Okay, top 10. Okay, for the people who cannot watch, I think the top 5 was the somewhat consensus. So throughout Campaign Asia, Branding Asia, and Profit, if I wrote an article that, let's say, not against C2C, but against the narrative that they want to put out, right? Or questioning the narrative that they're putting out. If I wrote an article that was questioning their narrative, if I ever spoke to Rehan, this is again before I became this employee, if I ever spoke to Rehan, it was like, hey, if you could not write about that, that'd be great. I'd be like, I'm still writing about it. He's like, take it. So he's making in a day what some agencies are making in a year. Yeah. And those agencies that are making that in a year are reaching out and saying, hey, listen, don't write that article for us. So on one hand, a gigantic agency person, no ego, and the other side, tiny agency, big ego, right? So when it came down to joining his organization, it was a no-brainer. Okay, if I'm going to be his publicist, I'm going to be his PR person, I'd rather work with someone who respects journalists and does not come with the threat-first approach, has respect for them to stay at a distance from them. And so that also helped in the transition as well. So when I was a journalist with Profit, he had that approach with me as well. Okay, reaching out and saying that if anyone threatens your life, you let me know, I'll make it go away. And there was multiple situations like that. Again, he never paid me, I never gave him anything in return, there's no quid pro. It was literally like a one-way relationship in many ways, where he's reaching out and saying, hey, you know, what if I have to invest in any particular tech platform, or this is something that we're about to do, what do you think about that? I'd give my opinion. And the other side was, I'm not dead because I really attributed to that. So that's where the guts comes from. When you know you've got backing, तो उसमें luck and privilege वाली बात होती है. When you know you've got strong backing behind you, you can take a lot of risks. So Rehan and a couple of others, So Rehan and a couple of other people in our country really had my back in that way. Babar Nizami, obviously with Profit as well. But Rehan Merchant protected me in a couple of situations. It was like one of the situations where like, Babar, I know you have a meeting in so-and-so area, don't go to that meeting. Letting you know in advance. So my life has been saved in that particular way. So most keys were just say, you know, let's not beat around the bush. You need backing in a country like Pakistan. That's why every other company, just be company में चले जाएं, आपके admin manager कौन है? Fana retired so and so, right? So that's what that person's actual job is. And you know, certain fintech companies जो पाकिस्तान में हैं, prop tech companies पाकिस्तान में, आप उनके profile पे जाके आप देखें उनकी executive chairman is a retired so and so. With a certain organization. So you need that security, you need that sort of cloud cover in Pakistan. And I have that alhamdulillah through my subscriber base and the people who are my readers and my supporters of the country.
A lot of people does not know here that he's a professional martial artist. So
was.
So I think a brown belt or black belt, I don't know.
Black in judo, red in taekwondo. But I'm better at judo.
So that is Babar Khan Javed for you. So and that's why I always mention a lot in Pakistan as well. In Pakistan, the company banana is actually very tough. Same amount of effort and time it would have been invested in another country would have resulted in like 10x gaining or something of the sort, right? But the point is, you have a responsibility towards the zameen, towards the dirty market concept. And I'm very actually lucky enough to work with Babar and Rehan and those guys who have the exact same ethos and values. कि जो करना है पहले मुल्क के लिए करके करना है, यहाँ से पहले मुल्क की जिम्मेदारी पूरी करें, फिर अपना कमाएं जिंदगी में जो है. So very honored and lucky to actually work with Rehan and Babar in that respect. I'm not coming towards this specific career part. I want to understand when you look at a story and being an influencer marketing company, we are actually just managing millions and millions of stories, right? It's one way or another. How do you go about actually, designing a story that this is a success, right? From point A, when the concept is in the brains of the client or the publisher's head, till the point the mass of the audience is looking at it, or Google News ka pura page bhar chuka hai with everything that you wrote, right? And especially if you would like to talk about it in the context of जब वही का seed round announcement हुआ, but it was a massive success. You had all the major publications coming up and talking, and that has helped us like 10x actually growth in terms of our next financing rounds and everything. Same goes for the publicist media का launch हुआ Pakistan में, it was a massive thing, right? So even before that, actually the war or the battle starts, you've already won it because the narrative is now so strong that nobody can beat it. So how you go about that whole value chain from concept to the execution?
The first part about this, the first part of the equation that we cannot miss out at all is, okay, एक चीज होती है idea, एक चीज होती है execution. And your company has proved that execution matters more than anything else. There's nothing, I mean, I'm sure there's something proprietary about the business, but as such, as a concept, as an influence marketing ecosystem, it can be, you have a lot of other companies, but they're not as successful, right? So execution is the name of the game. That's first point number one. That's the baseline that we can understand. But more than anything else, the root of everything is, I believe, culture. If the culture of the company allows you to be successful, then you can be successful. In my particular case, given my journalistic interactions with Rehan, and then getting an offer from him and being told, okay, you'll be doing all these things, including the PR of our companies. I had an understanding through my previous roles, and then I had an understanding when I spoke to him about this as well, that the only situations in which Rehan and I speak, and he's my direct supervisor, and he's the direct person who kind of measures my ability and all that. The only two situations in which we speak is me coming to him and being like, hey, this is what has been done as a positive, or I have tried every option at my disposal to solve this problem and I have failed considerably and I now need your help. These are the two situations in which I speak. We don't speak otherwise. I don't come to him with failures and I don't come to him with ideas. I come to him with the end result.
Same here.
So, and that's That's the same approach I apply with anyone in my team, the people you've also met as well. You can only come to me with the end result, or come to me when your back is against the wall, you've exhausted all your weapons, and no option is in front of you. So when that's the culture of, what does that imply? That Rehan has a hands-off relationship with me. He's like, I'll close my eyes, Babar will do whatever he does, he'll only come to me when he needs help, or he needs, wants to convey that we've done something right. So when that's the culture, and it's not very micromanaging, not very supervisory oriented, every single day, I don't know if you guys do this, so I don't want to step on your toes or anything like that, but like every single day, जो report लिखना होता है कुछ लोगों को के time sheets वाले जो culture okay you have time sheets, but I personally don't fill out time sheets, even if we do have it. I'm sorry for the ZTC HR people, but I don't fill out these time sheets. But I don't have that relationship with them. They have to update on a daily basis. That gives you room to think and meander and grow in that way. There is a human effort involved in thinking. If that's the culture, it's hands off. आपको पता है कि Fana is an expert. Let him do what he wants, or let her do what she wants, and don't question it unless they mess up. Really, just let them do what they want. If that's the culture, then here's what I can do as the follower. I know for a fact that there's 1,000 people in marketing and PR in Pakistan. As someone who's worked in those roles as well, on the agency and on the client side, I know for a fact when Essence comes to me and says, "Okay, Wali is now 3 years old. I'd love to put out a press release." I'm giving an example, but like Wali, you come to me and say, "Wali is now 3 years old. Let's put out a press release. Wali is now 3 years old." Right? 99% of people in my shoes would say, "Sir, बिल्कुल ही amazing idea. हम business reporter, Don, Tribune के मुंह पे नीचे घुसाएंगे कि एक press release है कि Wali turns 3 years old." Right? I guarantee no one's going to read that.
Absolutely.
It's just the most boring headline on the planet, right? I mean, you have to pay me to read that, basically, right? But it's one of those things that Essence Saab के वालिद and his friends वो Dawn पढ़ते हैं, Tribune पढ़ते हैं, Business Reporter पढ़ते हैं, उनको अच्छा लगेगा, वाह वाह होगी. So right? It's literally the same reason why like अगर PNG का ऑफिस एक जगह पे है और PNG के ऑफिस के बिल्कुल सामने जो बिलबोर्ड है वो एक उनका कोई प्रोडक्ट है ऑलवेज इन ऑल है. It's not because उनकी टारगेट सेगमेंट वहाँ है, because CEO साहब वहाँ से ड्राइव करेंगे, वो देखेंगे खुश हो जाएंगे. मतलब ये वाली जो टिक द बॉक्स वाली जो चीज़ होती है, चेक बॉक्स, ये बस खुश करने के लिए. So I literally I'm that person, I'm that 1% who's you've experienced this as well. Rehan has experienced this over and over again. Anyone in the ZTC org has experienced this, where 8 different people are coming in and we have this amazing idea for a press rollout. We'd like to do A, B, and C, and they're expecting me to say yes, and I'm the only one who are like that's it. I don't like anything else. So filtering things, editing things. Editor doesn't just mean editing, but editing ideas as well is what's important. And saying to people that, okay, we can pay Business Reporter 150,000 rupees to publish this, or we can see what Business Reporter is interested in writing. We can see what are data points we can put out there, and then they'll write it organically anyway. So Publicis Media's interview in Cap in Asia would have cost in the excess of 100,000 Singaporean dollars. We didn't spend that. We spent 3 hours of my time. Why? Because I worked there, so I know. But speaking to the publications and figuring out this is your area of interest, but then we have a Venn diagram. आपने एक circle बना दिया called Cap in Asia. Cap in Asia's preferred topics are all of these. Then you make another Venn diagram. And these are where our talking points are. And then you find the sweet spot in the middle. There's an overlap there, and you find out what they're interested in. And that's the thing they'll go at from an organic standpoint. And that's the essence of PR. PR, if you want to do it organically, the way I do it, is publisher first. What is the publisher's interest, the editor's interest, right? The reporter's interest? उसके हिसाब से मैं अपनी pitch बनाऊंगा. And that's what contextual marketing is, right? You apply this principle in every other aspect of your marketing mix that you don't apply. People don't apply to the PR.
Yes.
And it starts with the publicist. It starts with that person saying, "He said, well, that's an idea." Or saying, "Hey, that's a terrible idea. No one's going to want to read that." So in this particular context, someone coming to me and saying, "Hey, we'd love to, celebrate our 3rd year as a business," I would say to them that, "What are your target publications?" And then tell me the publications. And I'd come back and say, "Dawn's, so-and-so reporter would actually like to talk about the data points of why women influencers have taken over in Pakistan." Or just about the profit ka jo report tha, if I'm not mistaken, jo influencer pricing wala report tha, was about which categories are women saturated and not really the white spaces.
Yes.
And then the opposite as well for men. So why are women taking over this category? What is the white space that person can go for? And वहाँ पर कहीं अंदर जाके अपनी सीट कर लिया गया, and Wali is 3 years old. Co-founded 3 years ago, blah, 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 by Samina and Esen. That's where you see that, because that's not the main thing that the reporter, the journalist is interested in my experience. Again, speak to any of these reporters. I will give you that example of I called up a tier 1 reporter right there and then in front of a client, and I said, "Hey, which headline is better, this or this?" And he took the one that I suggested to the client right there and then. and I cut the call. So I was like, it's not me saying it. I'm telling you what the least path of resistance is. And the least path of resistance is to go with the report or the content that will interest the reporter more than anyone else. क्योंकि उसको अपनी buy-in करनी है. When is the last time you saw a reporter अपने, you know, profit की बात कर लेते, ठीक है? Profit पे आपने एक news चुसा दी, right? कि ये publish करो, हम आपको पैसे भी दे रहे हैं. But that reporter जिसके नाम पे ये चीज़ है native advertising के point of view से, वो उसको tweet नहीं करेगी. She will not, because she didn't write it. She's not proud of that piece of work. But when she tweets it, there's an authority attached to that piece of content, and that's behind all the success. So अगर publicist media की बात करें, कोई मुझे कहे कि Z2C is launching publicist media in Pakistan. My approach to this was, instead of us targeting 100 publications with a boring press release that no one will read, right? But you can take a box called "Ami dekha aapne mere business order mein mera naam aaya hai." Instead of saying that, what did we get at the end of the day? We went for quality over quantity. Yeah. And the quality we got was Campaign Asia pe interview with Beanish. The press release that we had created that we knew would be of interest to people came on BrandingInAsia.com, came on Media Post, and came on Business Insider. I don't care about that. So here's the beauty of exactly what we did with the Wali thing as well. If you remember, जब बिल्कुल शुरू में बात हो रही थी, I kept bringing up Meena bites. And the reason I said that was, once Tribunes, if I go to Tribune or Dawn today and I say that Wali is about to raise money, not interesting and all that. But once that person sees it on Meena bites, they're like, so Meena bites ने काम कर लिया, अब तो हमें करना होगा. हमारे मुल्क की कहानियाँ हमें नहीं पता. Yeah, exactly. So that's what that was. When it came on Campaign Asia, then all the publications came on it. So instead of sending the same email out to 50 people, I'm going to hit that one publication that everyone follows. Because one's a leader, one's a follower, right? Campaign Asia पे आया, बाकी सब then emailed me and said कि Babar gave us information, we'd love to be able to talk to her. The ones that Drum and Work and all these other publications came out. In the same case with yours, once we focus on quality instead of quantity, we went from Meena Price and a couple of others. When Tribune, Dawn and others saw it's on Meena Price, then they picked it up. Yeah. So why should I attack 10 when I can just go on for one and there'll be trickle down effect? But again, what was at the end of the day, when we were all in the discussions, we have to keep it interesting for the reporter, we have to keep it interesting for the news. And we vetted it by various reporters and all that, like on an off-record perspective that I'm sharing something with you, don't publish it. Embargo and all that is there. Embargo, if I'm not mistaken, 12 p.m. Yes. So we had like shared that with them in advance. They had written their own version of it in whatever way. Zubair from Meena Price had written his own version. And वो वाली बात होती है ना, जिससे अगर the question you just asked me is the question a lot of people inside the company, outside the company ask, how did we get so and so? The answer is very simple. Keep the interest of the publisher or the reporter or the editor first, and then keep your own stuff secondary. जो Banter idea ने बात की कि यहाँ एक circle है, यहाँ एक circle है, यहाँ 51% publisher, 49% you, तो जो बीच में sweet spot है pick that. Yes, absolutely. And that's the success of it. अब लोग कहते हैं कि इतना आसान तो ये होगा, इतना ही है, मैं क्या बोलूँ, इतना ही आसान है. But the hard part is now speaking to the reporter or the editor and figuring out कि आप हमें बताएं what are you interested in with regards to the Pakistan market, and we will provide content according to that. So without going into too much detail, or we can like after the videos off, then we can talk about that thing I pitched you yesterday or day before yesterday. Why that got traction almost immediately, to the point that I pitched something to SN in terms of a piece of research that we can do that will allow you to flex something that you have invested in, and it's a matter of show don't tell. Yeah. Instead of going to reporters and saying, hey, we acquired something, and can you write about it? We'll go to them and be like, here's the outcome of something that we acquired. And they'll jump on that immediately. So what is it right now? I don't want to name the publication. So there's 3 publications that are after my life right now for that piece of content that we will co-create. Yes. Right? As opposed to the other way around. We're chasing them. Now they're chasing me. Because I've gone to them and said that here's a piece of content we're about to create that will include A, B, and C talking points. And they're like, we love these talking points. This is exactly what we wanted. Where were you all my life? We're like, well, it's common sense. What you be looking at, we can write about, and we're looking at what we can offer you. And it's a bit different marriage of what you want and what we can offer you. And so that's the success of our PR strategy. Because Z2C is a media agency, and everyone has the perspective of the paid media and all that, it's taking some time to digest the concept of organic PR. But slowly and surely it's coming together, and we've seen our case studies appear in Work.com, which is the largest. WAR stands for, if I'm not mistaken, World Advertising Research Center. It's owned by the company that runs the Cannes Lions every single year, and it's the top repository for marketers and advertisers to see case studies for what works and why. So Work पे हमारी organically हमारी case studies आती हैं, and clients are very happy about that. Campaign Asia पे, we're the only agency that's been mentioned in the past. I've been working with Z2C now for 8 months. So the past 7 months, we're the only company that's mentioned. By we, I mean C2C, Brainchild, Startcast, Blitz. You're the only ones that mentioned. Why? Because when we pitch something to them, okay, hey, can you write about this? It's exactly in line with what they talk about. Not okay, हमारे तरफ से, we're the largest this, adjectives and all that. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So sticking to what the publisher wants and then starting with that as your starting point will actually tell them that okay, this person respected my point of view as opposed to trying to shoehorn their perspective or their bits and news down on the reader's throat. It's disrespectful at the end of the day. If you go the other way, the way I'm basically citing, you get much more click-through rate, आपकी optimizations ज़्यादा बेहतर होगी, and acceptance rate आपका बेहतर होगा. And that's basically the end of it.
बाबर ने जो पिछले 3-4 बड़ी की points mention की हैं जो मेरे से हम वैसे भी discuss करते हैं within the company as well all the time. And before that, there's one very important sentimental piece to it. Is that the reason Babar is so crucial to me and Wali as a Samir as a whole is he brings life to things that we do, right? Or I don't know if you guys understand that, but when we're sitting in a C-suite or like owner of the company, if you have bigger ambition, your goal is always clear. I need to make my teammates proud of me. It's a very important intrinsic need. For example, if you guys are here, then you guys should be proud of us, right? So Babar and I are constantly working on a lot of things. So couple of weeks, में all of that आएगा. And I always look at that here when you will go home. जिन्होंने बात की कि यार माँ का अखबार, जंग का अखबार पढ़ के तो माँ तस्वीर नजर आनी चाहिए. And we are trying very hard to make that happen. कि now in the next couple of weeks when you go home, आपके parents बताएंगे यार तुम्हारी यही वाली company नहीं है. Isn't this you guys? And that's what makes me very proud. कि यार you guys were absolutely, it's a privilege कि यार हम लोग बली में साथ थे. So as a CEO, as the founder, we're always thinking that how can we make you guys proud? And that is one of the crucial components that Babar makes it happen actually. जो 2-3 उन्होंने last slip कर भी दिए कि जब होना है अगले मतलब within the next couple of weeks and a couple of months काफी ज़्यादा आप लोगों को media में all of that नजर आएगा. And I'm sure you guys will be proud of how we are all together in this journey. और एक और चीज़ जो रेहान के काम करने के स्टाइल में आपने बात की और हम इंटरनली कंपनी में बहुत लोग प्रीच करते हैं कि I work with मेरा ख्याल तो रेहान भाई को बुलाए गए थे साथ ही but nevertheless कि I never as he mentioned we don't go to Rehan ever with ideas never actually. If there is a concept in the head, the execution plan is already ready and a couple of things have already been tried out. And then we're like, यार problem हो गया रेहान भाई बता इस बारे में क्या करना. And I think when we work together as well, I always encourage that don't come to me with brainstorm sessions. The point is, if you have it, कोई हम लोग limitation नहीं लगाते. There is no classicity in our company. जो आपने करना है कर लो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या होगा गलत हो जाएगा. It's fine. We will do it again. But the point is, have everything that you want properly consolidated, executed, then come and then you like yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's the best mode of working. So I think वो बात हमें executive की है, success जो उन्होंने बात की कि यार वो बंदा या वो company जो है वो कुछ घंटों में इतना कमाती जितना पूरे पाकिस्तान की बाकी एजेंसीज पूरे साल में कमा रही होती है. And that is that empowerment of the teammates and staff care up there. और वो चीज़ हम लोग executive में बहुत ज़्यादा देखते हैं. That is one of the core concepts behind the success of Wali. Before I actually open for questions, I had a very interesting interaction. मैं काफी से इस बारे में सोच रहा था कि जब आप आएंगे तो आपसे पूछूंगा. Influencer marketing is also all about telling organic stories, right? We always promote ourselves as an organic actor. It's just like आप Facebook पे ads चलाते हो तो आपको millions of CPM मिल जाएगा. मतलब you have impressions. Here you have millions and millions of influencers running organic ads for you, right? But it's actually authentic. It's real people, local languages, local context, contextualized marketing, right? But as you see in the industry, and you are somebody who I think knows the industry much more than me, actually, how much I know now. So, how do you see us evolving as an industry player and overall industry itself? There are a lot of traditional social media networks like Facebook and YouTube and Google and all of that. Then there's a plethora of Chinese social media networks coming in, and two very different demographics, two very segments, absolutely different universes actually. But they have to actually consolidate at one point in time. So how do you see the whole thing coming about in the next couple of years? And where do you see the trajectory moving on towards industry? Please also take it into the context. जो आपने इसमें दराज में बहुत बड़ा आर्टिकल आप लोगों ने सीन किया हुआ है कि भाई isn't the end of TV broadcasting? क्योंकि for me that's a big thing to say. It's a very big thing to say. Yeah, Daraz is an e-commerce player that has gotten broadcasting rights for the World Cup. Has just put the A Sports and 10 Sports and all of that in the past. How do you look at the industry next couple of years?
Well, the last thing from their own data, if you try to, they can take the quant from that. The data shows this. And why is it happening that way? Because I personally watched, I'm sorry, Amar, the last, I didn't watch it on your app. I watched it. Whether when you watch a cricket match, you want to watch it with family, you cheer together, and scream like a psychopath, but it's a six, and otherwise it's bold and all that. Phone पे क्या करेंगे हम,
कोई तोड़ देंगे, थोड़ी देर में phone तोड़ देंगे.
Exactly, phone तोड़ देंगे. So especially that drop catch, right? So poor guy. Anyway, so it's a social experience, and I was watching esports more than anything else, and AOI did a pretty good job with distributing its channel to the right broadcasters, and the way they did the placement as well was really well done. But then the ratings data reflected that जब Pakistan oriented matches थे, then obviously there was a lot of ratings, and then Pakistan non-Pakistani matches होते, the ratings were poor. But at the end, Daraz did somewhat better than them, and they don't like to say this. If you speak to people at Daraz, they're like, we don't like this narrative. We did better than conventional media, and this is just me saying it. And they're not even time, so just making that very, very clear. So, but the data that we all have and we all tout constantly is that you're under the age of 35, it's a good chance you have a mobile phone, and it's a good chance that you're mobile first.
Yeah.
And the good thing about Daraz, Daraz के app पे जब games देख रहे थे, was that because there's no ads in the middle, ads were probably around the app, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't really use it that way, because I saw the people using it. Ads were around it, लेकिन ये नहीं था कि commercial break के बाद आप मतलब game देख रहे हैं, पता चला action replay हो रहा है, run out live देखना और action replay देखना जमीन आसमान का फर्क है, right? So that was what the TV channels were doing, and because of that happening once, twice, thrice, people switched to the app because they knew it's going to be an ad-free experience. So it was just a matter that this could be one of many signals that is beginning and the end of the broadcast industry, because the broadcast industry is doing this for themselves. कि आपको नहीं पता कि अगर किसी को कोई beverage drink का कोई ad है, just 30-second का spot है, can't you do scenario planning that if you had cut away quickly, it'll be 22 seconds here, then 15 seconds here, 12 seconds here, cut down a little. So it's the fault of the broadcast industry. It's the fault of the broadcast industry for not planning for these things out. And people complain that our ratings down here, and then there's subsidies from the government and all that. So that's the first part. Where's the influencer industry going? I'm of the opinion, and I'm not an operator, so I really don't know. But from what I understand, the way you guys can capture a larger part of the pool is with like the Snack Video and Bigo, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know about TikTok, but if I'm not mistaken, Snack Video and Bigo pay the creators to be on the platforms, right? If I'm not mistaken, TikTok does not do that.
Yeah, very much. TikTok is very much against that.
TikTok is against that. Lekin we don't have I've reported about AnyMind Group. The AnyMind Group is a pretty good example of what you guys could move towards being, right? Multi-channel network is probably it's the play that makes the most amount of sense to me. And again, I'm not an operator of shoes the way you guys are, so I don't know whether that makes sense for Pakistan. But for me, it's a matter that become the American Idol version of what your ecosystem is, right? Be that place where people can audition, and you monetize that audition as well. People can audition for being celebrities in one way or the other. The audition doesn't have to be in a physical space; it can be on their phones and all that. And say, "Okay, I'd love to be an influencer. I'd love to be able to join the Wali ecosystem," and you are part of that talent acquisition process from the ground up. You are the training academy, you are the school that they go to understand how to make videos and how to shoot content and things of that nature, and then you put them. You become like the sort of the talent pool, the SSP. SSP का जो concept है, supply side platform का जो concept है, वहाँ से आप कहें कि now you're in a position where you're like, these people are locked into our platform. अच्छा वो दूर की बात है कि जो contracts sign करते हैं, they break those contracts, and everyone here has experienced that. कि talent is breaking contract, वो दूर की बात है. But let's assume that some of them don't, 49% let's say don't. Then you as a company can go to the Snack Video, TikTok, and Bigo and say that based on the kind of audience, content consumption that happens on your platform, we recommend these creators, and we're charging you the cost per acquisition fee of these users as maybe 15% less and all that stuff. The way side is what I think you guys can capture as well, which I don't know is practically realistic or not, which is what AnyMind Group does, and then also locking those creators into your own multi-channel network and being able to say that we have access to 6 apps, 100 million users, 40,000 channels, and so on and so forth across PMPs, which is like the concept that is applied in media agencies. It means private, if I'm not mistaken, it means private marketplace. इस तरह का concept है. उसमें ये है कि you can go to advertisers and dairy business, and you can go to them and say that your target segment is women at this age range, we have the 40, 50 influencers, top influencers in our network who only work with us. We're the gatekeepers, we're their only source of revenue, or we're the only agreed upon sales agents that can sell on their inventory on their behalf. And if you want to work with them, you have to go through us. So bringing that lock-in, which is very expensive to do, is something that I would see in the future, which is what anyone group does. I'm just really replicating that model in this space. Again, what will be the big differentiator? जब मैंने बिल्कुल शुरू में रेहान से बात की थी about which company, not necessarily to acquire, but when he was बिल्कुल शुरू में बात हुई with Rehan and his son Zaire about like what should we be looking at. And I was like, there's going to be two types of influencer marketing agencies, or two types of influencers if you want to segment influencers, or not even two types. Basically, I said कि एक point आएगा where the influencer ecosystem solution, whatever it may be, 10 होगा, amplified, Radri, even Wali. I was like, they'll have to come up with their own variables or their own rankings. So say I mentioned Wali 100 to you. But let's say there's a ranking called style versus substance. Just like you guys have a semantics tool. You have a tool that can analyze the sentiment of content. Yeah, that's Urdu, Roman Urdu, yeah, English. But what if there was a tool that could say that, yeah, Essen's a very beautiful person, sorry, Essen's a very smart person, Babar's a very beautiful person, but when Babar speaks, that's ye to har aur ke saath hota hai, right? Female content creator, doesn't matter what she looks like, she's talking about, car first. I don't know what car first does, I just saw the logo downstairs, but she's talking about car first. And she's saying everything right, that the value proposition is. Comment section में क्या होगा? दुपट्टा पहनो, बगैरत, फना, right? मर्द वही बात कह रहा है. Junaid Akram type. And लोग कह रहे हैं, sir, number दें, how can I do this and all that. So sometimes this branding goes around viewability, and sometimes there's marketing goes around call to action and getting people to understand something and build awareness around your solution. So can we segment influencers by that? Okay, there's an advertising funnel from awareness to conversion, which are the top influencers per aspect of the advertising funnel. And then sort of this is why as you know, I profile this. GroupM is creating their Inca. I mean, they're launching Inca. I don't know when. And GroupM is also and Daraz is also getting into the influencer marketing space. And it was article मैंने ये clearly कहा था that I think Daraz will have the more superior solution because they're going to be focusing on conversion, the end point. Because you can two birds one stone वाली बात होती है ना. If you have a pool of influencers that can drive sales, you can, as a result of using them, you can raise awareness and drive the sales. As opposed to अगर आपकी influencers are just around awareness, आपको बस awareness ही होगा, call to action तो नहीं होगा क्योंकि लोग करके उनकी वीडियो देखते हैं, they're going through every single video and that's all they're here for, right? And so they don't have the ability to drive action. And so that's what I thought Wali could do, or when I initially gave the recommendation to Zaire and all that, was that Wali and Den, based on the dashboard that I've seen, and the fact that there's a tech company behind that, which makes a big difference. Tech lens is behind you, or you've separated, but the fact that you're a tech arm behind you, with tech-oriented mindset behind you, any kind of iteration or new feature that you want to bring in can happen quite seamlessly, as opposed to the other competitors in the market, right? So I was like, if they can come out and say we have a style substance calculator that can tell you, okay, if you have a branding and viewability goal, then go for these influencers. जिनकी बात लोग मतलब देख लेंगे, they can call to action नहीं होगा because they're beautiful and all that, or the talented, very smart comedians or the pure content creators who are not conventionally attractive because they're bald or they're dark or whatever else they are, but people are watching them because of the substance of what they say. So that's the substance meter, and then that's the style meter. Because we have terminologies like quality index and bounce rate and all these others, but if you want to have your own IP protected or your own like niche in the market, जिस तरह एक ज़माने में ARFs का जो quality score था SEO perspective बहुत बड़ी चीज़ थी. SEO Moz was like the benchmark of the industry. If they have a high quality score, what was it called? Domain ranking and all that. Domain rate and all that. So that became the terminology. Instead of we use in business school, we use the word BCG matrix. So what's this matrix? BCG matrix. So you can brand your methodology. So in this case, I wanted to brand the methodology of Wali and say, can we talk about a style versus substance score on the celebrity side? Can we say in the Wali 100 from a style perspective, Mahira Khan, I don't know what the celebrity name is. Mahira Khan is number one, but from a substance perspective, Junaid Akram is number one because the call to action is strong there. And so you can segment then by style substance. You can segment the influencers by where they fall in terms of their success rate across the entire marketing funnel. And you can lock them in terms of your ecosystem and sort of be the influencer's DSP in that way. And that's what Buddy would be in my point of view. You could be the SSP and the DSP. As opposed to letting the snack videos and all be the SSP, and then एक point आएगा जिस तरह हमने कुछ तो पहले भी बात की थी, एक पॉइंट आएगा वो बोलेंगे कि why do we need one? We'll just create our own solution and we'll just cut them off, right? And they will do that. If you look at any of the product roadmaps, all of these companies, just Snack Videos owned by Queshu, right? So Queshu is a publicly listed company. They have a IPO उनका जब हुआ था, उनका perspectives is available online. उनका पूरा product roadmap उसमें लिखा है और ये चीज लिखी हुई है उनके अंदर कि हम एक DSP बनेंगे, हम influencer marketing solution एक निकालेंगे, self-serve solution हम एक निकालेंगे. So why would we need these external solution providers, right? We'll use them initially and then we'll do this. So the right approach is to lock in whatever you can lock in as quickly as possible. And now to do that, you need a lot of cash for it.
Yeah.
Which is where your series, your remaining series rounds comes in. That's what I would feel is the right approach. But again, it involves a lot of capital and it involves recurring revenue that you guys already have. And being able to bring that incentive to the table that allows someone or incentivizes someone to remain locked in. Because as you've experienced multiple times unfortunately throughout your time with Wali and other endeavors that you've done, so-called influencers like to break contracts and then say, okay, jo karna hai kar lo, right? And that's where your legal team gets involved. So I don't know what the right formula is, right?
Nobody knows the right formula for
that. Like Yasser said that thing about Formula 1. I don't know what the right formula is of getting the influencers to remain locked in your ecosystem and getting advertisers locked in your ecosystem. But the direction you guys are going in terms of your product roadmap with money shops and e-commerce and all those other things, I think that's the right direction. Because aage jaake, I think to be able to go to advertisers and say, we know which influencers will drive sales, as opposed to saying we know which influencers will drive, views and all that, will be a big difference, will be a huge competitive advantage. Abhi to YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, it disliked button खत्म कर दिया. If I'm Instagram पे भी I think एक कहा था कि आप
views remove करना start कर
views remove कर लेंगे. So at the end of the day, what does that mean? That if you are a branding goal-oriented person, now you have no benchmark to measure. But what you will always have a benchmark to measure is sales and lead forms filled out and all that. So if you have that bottom of the funnel as Wali with influencer and your shop's ecosystem, you have a huge differentiating advantage and competitive advantage. तो एडवर्टाइजर किस चीज के मतलब वो बोलेगा कि ये 2020 में जो डेटा था रेस्टोरेंट के इतने व्यूज थे तो हम प्रोजेक्ट करेंगे कितना होगा. That will only work so far. 2022 में that
I think that will already run the max it could.
जी, exactly. So that's where I would see the company going that direction because sales is going to be the name of the game. And every company, as to the best of their capacity, will launch their own .coms. So as a result of being under Z2C Limited or being part of the Z2C Limited family, we have Be Secure, which is the universal checkout solution, which is again another aspect of we have the endpoint data, what gets people to convert. And then we have Be Sports and a couple of other platforms underneath the funnel as well. So we know that is the data point, and that is the first party or third party data that has the most amount of value. And as time goes on, you will see Pakistan's advertisers get more aware about advertising fraud and get more aware about influencer fraud and also viewability fraud. And like if you go on any pirated website, like not pirated, let's say कि अगर आपको returns लिखना है और हमारे पास Disney Plus नहीं है पाकिस्तान में, लेकिन आप जाके वो लिखते हैं Google पे, the returns online. You go on a website, you click on anything. One of the redirect links, it's a referral affiliate links होते हैं. They go to sites like Hummart and Daraz and all of this. So they're paying for those things, and that contributes to a high bounce rate and all that. But these are also attributed to fraud.
Yeah.
And so that part of the ecosystem, I think, will become irrelevant and immaterial in the next 5 years, and everyone will be focused on what is the data point that allows me to generate revenue and sales. And आपको नजर आ रहा है, right? You meet e-commerce managers all the time. You meet brand managers and D2C brands all the time whose bonuses are now tied to e-commerce sales.
Yes.
And their bonuses are no longer tied to viewability. Or अगर आपने Park Talks देखा होगा, people talk about total addressable market. Every other word was total addressable market. So that will no longer be the case. People talk about the end result, the end consequence, and all that. And if you're that company that has that first or third-party data, or that information about which influencers or which mediums, which are basically media to invest in, you have a differentiating advantage in the market.
I think marketing, sales और tech वाले को बहुत खुशी हुई कि आप ये सारी बातें सुन के, because this company is all about conversion. We talk about it a lot in terms of marketing, sales, and tech. And we also talked about segmenting influencers into those specific buckets of exactly which stage of the funnel is usable for which niche category. So I guess that's a source of confidence for all of us that we are in the right direction and maybe much ahead of the curve as well. So very happy for that. I guess at this point in time, we would just end the live stream because we'll open for questions and those will be very private conversations within the Wali live stream. If there were any
And
audience,
if I just add, all of this is based off, not that I'm a genius or anything, I'm an expert guy, like I usually go by analyst. I usually only go by analyst because from a bird's eye view, looking at something, I'm not in the dirt. The way you guys are in the dirt on a daily basis, you know how, insert gali, how influencers can be and how advertisers can be, you know the realities of the matter. I'm looking at things from a bird's eye view. What asan hai na, idea lena, execute karna is actually the hard part, right? So like there's a bunch of people in the room that probably think to themselves, "Kisko kya aata hoga?" He's never actually done it, right? So I completely agree with that. But all of this is based off detailed conversations over the past 4 years with the people who run the Anymind group and a lot of the other companies that are profiled in Singapore, and having a very strong understanding, and this is public information. आप Google पे जाके लिखें Anymind group acquired, and look at what they've acquired over the years. Yeah. So Wali would be one of those companies that they would want to acquire down the line. And this is something that I actually conveyed to Rehan and Zaire, that the conversion company, the company at the bottom of the funnel that has covered the SSP and the DSP and probably the DMP side of the equation will be the one to capture. Because why would you capture only one? Why would you acquire only one side of the equation? So if you're looking for a very good exit, Anymind group would be the best way to exit out of that. They're acquiring MCNs at ad hoc spaces. They're acquiring at DSP companies and SSP companies. So if you're all in one, it'll be the sweetest pie that they could ever acquire. So very soon, if I could have 1% of money, that'd be nice. So becoming a millionaire would be your plan.
Thank you. Our budget after baat ki. Demand side is getting locked. We have already done amazing stuff there. Supply side, we are already moving really fast. Our Willie is already DNP, right? So I think yes, we are in a very good stage. So alhamdulillah for that. And here we will say goodbye to the live audience, and we'll shift the question towards. Right.